If you think life is too bitter and want to add some sugar, this one spoonful might just unalive you. Do not be fooled by this sweet-sounding title, because this is actually a heavy-hitting banned film that makes countless people's scalps tingle. In this place, there is no salvation and no hero, as there is only a group of demons hiding under human skin, hunting each other, and especially the shocking twist at the end of the movie will absolutely shatter your worldview. Millicent is a freshly graduated college student. However, while she looks glamorous on the outside, she actually has an unbearable past. She is an abandoned infant who has bounced around multiple families, and although she has experienced brief moments of family warmth, she inevitably ends up being harmed by her adoptive fathers without exception. Her unfortunate childhood causes her to suffer from severe psychological disorders. While on the bus, she sees a mother nursing her baby, and she almost cannot resist the urge to go up and take a bite. Whenever a strange man stands behind her, she involuntarily starts having delusions. After snapping back to reality, Millicent awkwardly flees the bus. At this moment, the medicine prescribed by her doctor takes effect, as dropping just one drop into her mouth quickly calms her beating heart. However, this medicine has massive side effects, meaning that taking too much of it will produce even more severe hallucinations. Therefore, this bottle of potion is both Millicent's salvation and her shackles. Meanwhile, her psychiatrist, Dr. Welsh, is also a hypocritical beast. Whenever Millicent comes for treatment, he uses massage as an excuse to harm her. Facing these behaviors, Millicent dares not show anger or speak out. Over a long period of time, her psychology gradually becomes twisted. Millicent has no choice but to drop out of school. In order to survive, she actively applies for a nanny job. Her job description is to take care of the little boy in front of her, who is wearing a spacesuit. The female head of the household, Rebecca, tells Millicent that her son Johnny has congenital autism, and even though he has grown so big, he still cannot say a simple word like mom. Furthermore, he is allergic to many things, meaning he not only cannot have contact with animals, but even eating a spoonful of sugar could unalive him. Most importantly, Johnny is also accompanied by very severe bipolar disorder, frequently losing his mind for no apparent reason. Taking care of such a child obviously requires an immense amount of patience. The clever Millicent notices Rebecca's concerns, so she uses conversational skills far beyond her age to clearly express her views. She says that many patients' allergy problems actually stem from psychology, so besides physical therapy, they can also consider using lysergic acid to relieve symptoms. Even though Millicent tries her best to show her professionalism, Rebecca still feels somewhat uneasy due to her lack of relevant nanny experience. In order to secure this job, Millicent slowly approaches Johnny. Unexpectedly, Johnny not only shows no resistance, but instead writes a greeting on a blank piece of paper. After seeing that her son does not reject this stranger, Rebecca finally lets go of her worries and formally introduces the work details. At first, Millicent listens very attentively, but very soon, her eyes are drawn to the male head of the household, Jacob, who is in the yard. Rebecca does not notice Millicent's hidden thoughts, simply stating that her upcoming work will be very busy, so she leaves the house in Millicent's care. At this time, Jacob walks into the house. Facing the job applicant Millicent, he shows no hesitation at all, still walking around shirtless, and even tries to get intimate with Rebecca right in front of Millicent. Rebecca, looking completely calm, rejects her husband, as if she has long been accustomed to Jacob. This also causes Millicent to develop unusual romantic feelings. After returning home, she begins looking at herself in the mirror over and over again, completely unable to control her excitement. There is a detail here that needs attention, as she has an electric fan above her head, and there is a notebook on top of the electric fan. Millicent holds the notebook in her hands like a precious treasure, and whenever she is in a good mood, she takes it out to read the contents inside. But this time, just as she opens the notebook, the voice of her adoptive father Roger comes from downstairs, instantly startling Millicent. From this, it can also be seen that Millicent is actually very afraid of her adoptive father. Millicent puts the notebook back in its original place, and then talks to her adoptive father about working as a nanny. From their conversation, it is evident that their relationship is not ordinary, having already exceeded the boundaries of father and daughter. Roger does not want Millicent to go to work. Millicent has already had enough of this old man, knowing that his reason for adopting her in the first place was driven by filthy motives. Therefore, Millicent has always wanted to get rid of her adoptive father, but she knows this requires a prerequisite, which is that she must learn to support herself. Facing her bitterly begging adoptive father, Millicent chooses not to back down. Soon, time flashes to the next day, where Millicent smoothly takes on the role of the nanny. Unexpectedly, she and Johnny get along surprisingly well. Johnny, who is usually extremely emotionally unstable, is now very willing to get close to Millicent, and even unprecedentedly runs outside to play. This harmonious scene unfolding before their eyes also makes Jacob very gratified. However, because Millicent has been taking lysergic acid for a long time, it keeps her in a constant state of hyperarousal, meaning that even the simple action of Jacob taking a bite of an apple makes her imagination run wild. After Jacob leaves, Johnny suddenly runs under an apple tree, acting as if he is digging for something in the dirt. Millicent curiously leans over to check, only to discover that he has dug up a deceased rabbit. Seeing this situation, Millicent is incredibly shocked, because she clearly remembers Rebecca saying that Johnny is allergic to all animals. Yet right now, he is holding a rabbit carcass and playing with it. Even more fatally, Johnny does not show any allergy symptoms at all, and he actually possesses a severe tendency for torturous behavior. It seems that the boy in front of her is exactly like herself, as both of them are compulsive liars. Finding a kindred spirit makes Millicent extremely excited, and she even takes out a small knife to teach Johnny how to dissect the body. Following that, she even tears off the rabbit's fur and gives it to him as a gift. What is even stranger is that Johnny not only feels no fear, but instead exchanges a smile with Millicent, looking highly satisfied with this present. Subsequently, Johnny pulls out another rabbit that he has unalived, indicating that this time he wants to do the deed himself. Early the next morning, before Millicent goes to work, she puts on delicate makeup, planning to use this to attract Jacob's attention. And today happens to be Johnny's birthday. Because Rebecca is out of town at this time and has missed her flight, Jacob gets into a huge fight with her over the phone. Millicent, naturally, will not let go of such a perfectly good opportunity. At night, she thoughtfully prepares a sugar-free cake and celebrates Johnny's birthday together with Jacob. It is as if the three of them look more like a happy family. But unexpectedly, Johnny's manic depression suddenly acts up at an inappropriate time, meaning the birthday party has to be forcefully terminated. Fortunately, under Millicent's comforting, Johnny's emotions quickly calm down, and he falls asleep quietly in her arms. She initially believes the remaining time belongs solely to her and Jacob, but immediately after, Millicent discovers Jacob on the phone, whispering sweet nothings to his wife. Driven by jealousy, Millicent directly cuts the phone line. Without Rebecca's interference, Jacob finally notices her. Seeing that Millicent does not resist his approach, Jacob's flirtatious nature is completely exposed at this moment. Just as they are about to have a deeper interaction, Johnny suddenly opens the door because of wetting the bed. Although a perfectly good opportunity is ruined, this interaction makes Millicent's confidence multiply. She believes that since Jacob is equally interested in her, her plan to replace Rebecca is only a matter of time. Not long after, Rebecca, who was working overtime at the company, returns, and looking at her fast-asleep son, her heart feels extremely guilty. Here, Rebecca says a baffling sentence. Subsequently, she begins to slowly approach her son, deeply afraid of accidentally waking him up. Only when her son is asleep can she experience hugging him. But unexpectedly, Johnny still wakes up. Without saying a word, he directly slaps her across the face and then kicks his mother out of the room. Actually, Rebecca hid something from Millicent, which is that Johnny has a very severe tendency for violence, meaning the more familiar he is with someone, the more he will get physical with them. Johnny liked rabbits very much before, so the rabbits passed away. Her son's eccentric personality makes Rebecca extremely distressed, so she has picked up a very bad habit, which is self-harm. Sometimes harming herself is not enough, as she even makes Jacob abuse her, because only in this way can she comfort her painful soul. On this day, Millicent brings Johnny to the park. However, Johnny's attire and grooming attract the pointing and whispering of passers-by. Johnny keeps his head down the entire time, not daring to make eye contact with others. However, right at this exact moment, a young couple starts arguing not far away. Johnny has never seen this before, so his emotions instantly spiral out of control. This makes Millicent incredibly worried, because Rebecca does not allow Johnny to go out, meaning Millicent brought him out secretly. Under Millicent's comforting, Johnny's emotions gradually return to calmness. Their relationship also gets better and better through these insignificant, trivial matters. Closing the distance with Johnny is merely Millicent's first step. What she absolutely never expected is that it is exactly this step that causes her to pay a tragic price. Millicent does not know this at this time, still immersed in what she believes to be a beautiful family atmosphere. Rebecca wants to cut her son's hair, but Johnny completely ignores her. However, when Millicent picks up the scissors, he sits exactly in place like a good baby. Even for the toy Rebecca hands over, he turns his head to ask for Millicent's opinion, and only after Millicent nods does Johnny finally take the toy from Rebecca's hand. For a mother, this is simply a supreme humiliation. But Johnny quickly hands another toy back to Rebecca, which instantly makes her beam with joy again. So she casually reaches out to brush Johnny's bangs, but is suddenly bitten fiercely by him. Regarding this, Millicent is superficially very panicked, but her heart is already blooming with joy, as she feels that as long as she adds fuel to the fire, perhaps she can soon replace Rebecca and become the female head of this house. Therefore, she pretends to be very unhappy and runs to Dr. Welsh to cry and complain. Judging from the subtle movements of Dr. Welsh's hands, his thoughts towards Millicent are also not pure. Right at this moment, Millicent suddenly starts vomiting. Dr. Welsh hurriedly runs to the washroom to clean up a bit. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Millicent steals all the lysergic acid from the drawer and then drops it all into Johnny's pills. After that, Johnny quickly enters a state of hyper-arousal just like Millicent. They completely let loose, completely freeing themselves. In the fake world, Millicent becomes Johnny's guardian, and their relationship grows one step closer. Johnny follows Millicent outside without even wearing his protective suit, but strangely, Johnny actually does not have an allergic reaction, meaning what Rebecca said before was fake, and Johnny never had any allergens. They play on the street for the better part of the day, but just as they are heading home, they are almost hit by a car. Even more coincidentally, this car actually belongs to Jacob and his wife. Discovering that Millicent not only brought Johnny out to run around wildly, but also did not have him wear the spacesuit, one can imagine how angry Rebecca is. But right at this moment, Johnny suddenly opens his mouth and calls out, "Mom." This is the very first time he has spoken since childhood, which makes Rebecca overwhelmingly happy. But she quickly discovers that the mom coming from Johnny's mouth is not calling her, but is calling Millicent. This makes Rebecca thoroughly furious, as her own son is actually calling another woman mom, so she directly reprimands Millicent and then brings Johnny back home. After returning home, Rebecca starts asking Johnny again about who his real mom is. But Johnny not only says nothing at all, but also reveals a highly meaningful smile. This smile also foreshadows that Johnny's inner mind is actually not that simple. Meanwhile, on the other side, Millicent has finally waited for the opportunity she has long anticipated. When Jacob drives her home, she ultimately fails to resist the temptation, falling into lust. At this moment, Millicent's plan to usurp the position has almost succeeded. However, there is still one crucial problem that needs solving, which is her adoptive father at home. After returning home, Roger's words and actions are extremely abnormal, as he clearly witnessed everything inside the car just now. He endlessly interrogates Millicent about why she had to do this, and even excitedly blurts out a shocking secret. Pointing at a photo, he says that he lost his wife for her, yet now she has betrayed him. These words explain an even more terrifying truth, which is that because Roger was obsessed with Millicent, he did not hesitate to unalive his first wife. At the same time, this also reflects the terrifying aspect of Millicent manipulating people's hearts. Since Jacob is currently a more ideal next option, and she also has a kindred spirit like Johnny to act as an amulet, the old and frail Roger, therefore, loses his utilization value. Millicent takes advantage of Roger being off guard to directly use a belt to unalive him. Subsequently, she also cuts off a lock of his hair, carefully hiding it inside that previous diary. And the diary in front of her is exactly the record of all the deeds she committed during her foster life. It records the information of a total of 4 adoptive fathers. But absolutely do not be deceived by the superficial numbers, as the actual victims go far beyond this. Because single men do not have the qualifications to adopt girls, every family is composed of at least a husband and wife. In other words, Millicent has at least a full 8 lives on her hands. Early the next morning, Millicent goes to work like usual. At this time, her mood is happy, because she has finally broken through the last step with Jacob. However, just as she arrives at the door of the house, she sees Rebecca talking with Dr. Welsh. From their conversation, she learns that Dr. Welsh is also Johnny's attending physician. Hearing them discussing her, a bad premonition surges in Millicent's heart, as she fears her identity is about to be exposed. If she lets Jacob know she has a psychiatric history, then everything she has will vanish into nothingness. Rather than sitting and waiting for demise, it is better to strike first. So she decides to use a more extreme method. Not long after, Dr. Welsh becomes the next victim. Here, the director does not show the process of Millicent making her move, but through Dr. Welsh's state of demise, one can guess he probably passed from poisoning. Having consecutively eliminated 2 lives, Millicent's expression remains completely unchanged. In order to prevent accidents from happening again, she decides to act as quickly as possible. She secretly finds Johnny and hands a small knife to him. It must be said that Millicent is extremely vicious at this moment, as she actually wants Johnny to go and unalive his own mother. And to ensure Jacob can stand on her side, Millicent gets intimate with him again in the yard. She thinks her plan is absolutely foolproof, but will the result truly go as she wishes? On the other side, Rebecca is taking Johnny to draw pictures. However, Johnny draws a picture of Jacob being intimate with Millicent. Looking again at those drawings on the wall, Rebecca discovers that all the spaces originally meant for her have been occupied by Millicent. This makes her break down all at once. At this time, Millicent happens to come to work, but Rebecca refuses to let her meet with her son no matter what she says. Millicent believes it is clearly her care that has improved Johnny's condition, so she gets into a fierce argument with Rebecca. It is just a pity that she does not gain any advantage in the argument. Seeing the disadvantageous situation, Millicent finds Jacob for help, but unexpectedly, he does not want to make an enemy of his wife for Millicent's sake. At the same time, Rebecca in the room is accompanying her son to draw pictures together. Unexpectedly, Johnny pulls out a small knife and viciously pierces through the back of her hand. At this moment, Johnny is completely unaware of what happened, because having taken the lysergic acid mixed into his pills, his entire being is trapped in hallucinations, with his body and thoughts completely out of control. Fortunately, the dosage is not large, so the knife in Johnny's hand quickly drops to the ground. Rebecca finally reaches the end of her tolerance, forcefully locking him inside the room's wardrobe. Meanwhile, on the other side, Millicent, in order to ask Jacob to lend a helping hand, seduces Jacob once again. Jacob naturally also has not a single ounce of self-control. But just as they are deeply entangled in passion, Rebecca suddenly appears holding a knife, directly stabbing toward the completely defenseless Millicent. Millicent runs out with a face full of pain, coincidentally bumping into Johnny, who came out after hearing the noise, and she quickly begs him for help. She naively believes that this boy who has shared secrets with her and relies on her will definitely not let her get hurt. But Millicent is wrong. She only sees Johnny suddenly reveal a bizarre smile, and then he grabs the knife and plunges it directly into her. Amidst repeated tragic screams, Millicent quickly loses her breath. Up until the very last moment, she never figures out what exactly is going on. And the Jacob couple standing to the side act as if they have long been accustomed to this, coldly watching everything unfold before their eyes, even stating that if this continues, the yard at home will probably not be enough to bury them all. Finally, as the camera slowly pulls away, it turns out that underneath every single tree in the yard lies a previously victimized Nanny, and the number of these bodies far exceeds the records in Millicent's diary. As it turns out, all of this is a scheme by the Jacob couple, and the purpose is purely to satisfy their child's desires. Because Johnny suffers from severe antisocial personality rage disorder, meaning once his condition flares up, he has to do the deed. He has harmed all the nannies who came to work, and the Jacob couple acts as his accomplices, using various methods to recruit nannies suitable for targeting, and then letting Johnny eliminate them at the right moment, using this to stabilize his condition. And Johnny's so-called autism and allergies are also just excuses they use to lower the nanny's guard, because only vulnerable groups can garner sympathy, making them much easier to target. With this, the movie concludes, and I will see you guys in the next video.